Andrew Swift, welcome to noise11.com. You can count your lucky stars.
Thank you very much, mate. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Lucky Stars, a very personal album. How did the idea of luck evolve into an entire concept for a record?
Well, it's funny. The name sort of came about after the fact, when I was trying to find the right title to sum up the album, really. And that happened to be Lucky Stars because... it wasn't that long ago that I was fixing caravans for a living, and my love life hadn't had the best history, and all of a sudden that changed. I get to do music as a full-time job. I have a beautiful partner, and now we have a beautiful daughter, and I've got two great stepsons as well. So it's just funny. It's one of those things where I never saw that for me in my life, and then life just does what it does and surprised me, and I count my lucky stars that it did.
Well, with that title in mind, and you've said luck isn't lightning in the past, how do you feel how Lucky Stars sort of captures your lifetime grid? I think, there was a history of flipping burgers back in the day, wasn't there? Yeah. All the way through to, from burgers to standing on a stage.
That's it. I've had all sorts of different jobs trying to make this whole music thing work. There was the flipping burgers. I worked in a CD shop, a music instrument store. I did labouring at a steel factory where I was running a plasma cutting machine, and then I was fixing caravans for years as well. So, there's a lot of luck in what we do, but there's also a lot of payoff for hard work, and I think that's sort of what has happened as well. But I'm just grateful that I think it's more. When I say I count my lucky stars, I'm just grateful that things that have worked out the way that they have. And you can put in all the hard work you want, but, unless people are going to engage with it and connect with what you're doing, then, you can be putting the hard work in. There's always hard work. I'll put it this way. You can be throwing mud at a wall and hoping it sticks for a long time. I was going to say the other saying, but, throwing mud at a wall and hoping that it sticks, and without people connecting with it, that's what I'd be doing still.
There's quite a geographical footprint with this record, recording in Tasmania with Matt Fell, mastering in Nashville. So you've both got the Australian and the American recording cultures to deal with. Is there a sort of a mix of both that then blends into Lucky Stars as a result of sort of this geographic work that you've done?
A little bit. It's crazy. Things changed a lot with COVID with how we record an album now. So, you can still go into a studio for sure and do it as a whole band, but the way it works when I record with Matt is that we quite often do the acoustic guitars and bass in the studio, and then we ship off the drums to Sydney to be done, ship it off to Sydney for drums, ship it off to Nashville for guitar. The mastering happens in Nashville. I used to work with Chris Stapleton's mastering engineer, and unfortunately his prices are just a bit out of my price range now. But one of the other people that works there, she's fantastic, and she's mastered this record. But I think the biggest, collaboration, the biggest thing that brought the two countries together was the fact that a bunch of these songs were written at the APRA Song Hub sessions, and some were here in Melbourne, but then we did 3 days over in Nashville as well. So there's a bunch of songs there written with Americans, and which was a great thing to do. And the Song Hubs thing is crazy because you're chucked in a room, you got 3 hours to write a song with people you just met, then you break for lunch and you do it all again with a different 3 people in the afternoon. So you really just, throwing yourself in there and deep diving into each other's culture to write a song.
So we're seeing the co-writes on here, as you've just been talking about there, Lindsay Rimes, Phil Barton, Ella Hooper, Billy Joe Porter, the Wolfe Brothers. How did that mix of talents then shape the storyline of the album?
Generally, whenever I go into a songwrite, you basically sit down and you have a chat for 10 minutes, half an hour, like just getting to know each other or trying to find some common ground to write about. And, there are songs that we wrote that I've written over the past 18 months that aren't on this record because they're not necessarily for me and don't necessarily tell that story. So it was a matter of finding the songs that worked, fit with what I was doing. And I guess because I was being so grateful over the last 12 months or so with what we've got. We purchased a house last year, which was a big turning point for me. I think that was coming through in a lot of the songwriting. A lot of my suggestions were based around that. So I feel like that's what probably drove the songs in the direction that they've gone into.
Let's talk about the songs. Nothing Better, the one of the early songs we got to hear from this record. Now, you wrote this one while you were homesick in Nashville. What was going through your mind that day?
Well, we'd literally just bought the house last year, and then I think it was 3 days later I had to go to Nashville. Like 3 days after we moved in, I was in Nashville. So I was definitely homesick. I don't usually get homesick when I travel. So that was a new experience for me. And that was the last day of the songwriting. So I was pretty jet lagged at that point. And I was just realizing that was the day that I really sort of realized how grateful I am to have everything that I've got. That was really the first song that I realized that that's what was happening. I've been writing songs about it, but that was the song that made me realize that, oh, this is how I'm feeling about life right now. Great. So, and it's funny because that session, I think we had 3 hours to write the song, but I think we wrote it in an hour and a half because we were just having a big chat and having a good laugh for the first hour and a half, and then it just sort of fell out, which has worked out pretty well, I think.
The track Get Lost, that taps into your life on the road. Was this song written on the road?
Well, this song actually wasn't written by me. This song was written by Blake Dantier, who Blake and I are good mates. We quite often share accommodation together in Tamworth, and we were doing a couple of other writes for this album. And I just said to him, mate, I really love the way you write. If you think there's anything that would be a good fit for me that you've got hanging around, feel free to send it through. So he sent through about 3 or 4 songs, and the moment I heard Get Lost, I connected with it because I love being on the road. I've done a lot of driving, a lot of traveling, and so it was an immediate connection with me, and like I could just really relate to it. So that's why I was like, mate, that one, you wrote. Like I feel like I could have written that song. That's it. That's my song. I need to record that one. So that was a bit of a no-brainer, really.
What about the track Neon Queen? Now, this is the one that's a co-write with Ella Hooper. You're a little bit country. She's a little bit rock and roll. Bit of the Donnie and Marie thing going on there.
Yeah, it's funny. I'd wanted to write with Ella for a while, and this was one of the songs from the Song Hub sessions. We actually did it here in Melbourne first for 3 days, and this was the very first song that we wrote for the whole sessions. And it was I didn't want to go into these writes without any ideas, and I sort of this was my main idea I had, and I said to myself, I'm not going to pull it out in the first write. Like I'll save it when I need something else. I pulled it out in the first write, but I basically had the opening sort of first verse written, and we took it from there. But I said, I'm envisioning this, these cowgirls who are just hitting the town, the girls getting dressed up in their cowboy hats and boots and going out for a night on the town, these honky-tonk bars. And, Lindsay Rimes had just been to CMC Rocks, and he goes, I know exactly the people you're talking about. Yeah, and we end up calling them Neon Queens. And it was really fun to write with Alice. She's great with spitting out the lyrics, and the rest of the verses came together pretty quickly with her and I just sort of bouncing off those while Lindsay was sort of building a bit of a sound for the track.
The next track we'll talk about, Kickin' Tires. This was written with Americans, and we know it was written with Americans because you spell tires with an I and not a Y.
I know. I flip-flopped on what to do there for a while because when we wrote it, we didn't know who we were writing it for, whether it's for me or for someone else. And I just thought it's going to be a little more easy on a universal platform that we all deal with now with streaming services to just have it as the American spelling. But I definitely wrote it with Americans, and it was a really fun write to have because this was a title idea that I pitched them with, Kickin' Tires, and they're like, "Oh, what do you mean by that?" And it wasn't an overly familiar term for them, but we were just throwing the conversations we're having about what we would do as teenagers to kill time with our friends, and it was a lot of fun. Some of the stories we were swapping, but then we were also trying to find stuff that everybody could relate to, and not just the Americans could relate to these these ideas, or not just Australians that relate. We wanted to make it across the board because, as I said, we didn't know who was going to cut it, and it was just ended up being me in the end. But it's very much a reflective song for me. That period of time where, you know, one or two of your mates have got their license, but you don't all have that freedom. And what do we do to kill time? And you sort of all jump in each other's car and drive somewhere, and, you know, whoever's not driving has a couple of drinks, and you just kicking tires, standing around killing time.
Oh, Valentine. This is the duet with Simone Sordello, and this is the song you've written about your daughter. This must be a very emotional song for you. Are you going to tear up when you have to perform it live?
I think I'm okay. So far so good. I haven't teared up. Simone has now got to a point where she can listen to it without crying. Simone is, obviously my partner, and this is a song we wrote for our little girl while Simone was pregnant, and we wanted to write a song that was almost like a letter from us. Like, you know, I wanted to write about what I adore Simone. I was like, I hope that our daughter has your eyes and your smile, and then that evolved into what we hope. How we hope she'll be in life. We hope she'll be happy within herself, and, you know, we hope that growing up doesn't happen too quickly, and all that sort of stuff. So it was really sweet, and I knew that because of the overall theme of this record was about being, you know, feeling lucky and being loved up and in a good spot. I knew I wanted a duet with Simone because I knew she had an incredible voice, and I was originally thinking it would be on a different song. But then when we started to write this, I said, Sim, this has got to be the duet song. And let's make it a letter from Mum and Dad. And I think it's worked out really well.
Because the song she was going to be on was Works For Us. Why didn't you go with that?
Yeah, I think we would, because it wasn't originally written as a duet. We were trying to make it work. Like, we were trying to find the right key. We were trying to work out who would sing which parts. But the moment we started writing our Valentine, we just scrapped the idea of Works For Us. It was trying to fit a bit of a square into a triangle hole. To make that work as a duet, whereas Valentine just was a much more natural thing.
The song talks about batting above your average. It's a terrible thing to say about her. You must have a very high opinion of yourself if you think she's batting above her average.
Yeah, well, that's with Works For Us, right? Yeah, I mean, I wanted to write that song because it's quite a common thing in Australian culture for there be that gesture, like that ribbing with guys to go, oh, geez, mate, you're batting above your average, or, and then there's the weight ones as well. Oh, you've been in a good paddock. People, they feel like they're being friendly, but it's kind of having a dig at the same time. And I'm someone that's been, sort of in my childhood years, I was bullied a lot. And all my life, whenever I date someone, I've always heard that, oh, you're batting above your average. And I've heard it so much that I was starting to overthink it. And I'm like, oh, geez, what does she see in me? Why, there must be some truth to this. I think she's incredible, but clearly I mustn't be that much. And that was sort of where the idea of the song came from. And then I was like, you know what? Who cares? Like, we're happy. It works for us. Like, and that's where the song came from.
The track Change a Man. Now, that's you now talking about you then. How much change is there in the man?
Well, yeah, there's quite a bit of change. Like, there's another song on the album called Ramble and Roam, and there's, that's sort of who I thought I was, who I used to be, and then Change a Man is, meeting Simone and realizing that it's not that she tried to change me, it's just that I wanted to change. I've now changed without realizing it was happening. I used to hate coming home from being on the road, whereas now I can't wait to come home, and it's harder to get to leave. So just that sort of thing has really changed me. But I'll have to say where the idea of that song came from, because from where it started to where it is now couldn't be further apart. I wrote it with Billy Joe Porter, and we'd been doing some shows the weekend that we wrote it. And as we were driving home from one of the shows, her and her partner hit a wallaby with their car. And she goes, I tell you what, Swifty, I looked that wallaby right in the eyes. When you look at wallaby right in the eyes before you hit it, it changes a man. And she goes, I think we should write a song about things that change a man. And that's where it sort of came from, but where it's ended up is so far from that.
Wow. Well, you need to go out and see the movie Kangaroo now, don't you?
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Yeah,
That song should have been on the soundtrack.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah, Ramble and Roam that you just mentioned
Yeah.
about your restless old self. Was
Mm.
it difficult to sort of come to terms with the fact that you're now the family man?
It was such a gradual thing. I think, like Simone and I didn't move in together for 4 years or something of dating. We both enjoyed having our independence, and having two boys that Simone has for me to adjust to as well was a big thing. But in the way that we did it, was sort of slow and steady. And I definitely thought I was someone who wasn't meant to have a family. That I was destined just to be traveling, being on the road. My dad is sort of a little bit that way as well, and we've spoken about that. And I was like, oh, that's where I get it from. So I thought that's who I was, and I was okay with that. And Ramble and Rome, I nearly didn't put on the album because the subject is so different than the rest of the stuff. But it wasn't until I realised that if I rearranged the track listing in a certain order, it almost tells a journey of where I was to where I'm at now. So that's I felt like it had its place then.
The song Living Like We're Loaded is the good time to be had for all. Is that what it was written as? Just a good, fun song?
Yeah, it's all about having not much, making the most of not having of what you've got, even if it's not much. And this idea sort of stems from something that happened during the lockdowns here in Melbourne, where we were stuck at home, we couldn't go anywhere, and after I don't know how many months, Simone was like, I'd love to be able to go to Bali or, somewhere tropical. I think it was middle of winter. So we turned on the heating and we brought up a video of a beach on like one of those screensaver things on the big TV. And I made breakfast, and it was like we're having breakfast at a tropical resort. So just trying to make the most of not having much. And this living like we're loaded was the idea behind that. And we kind of made it a little bit more fun in the content. But yeah, it's just a fun song, and it's fun to play live too.
And if that's the fun song, See You at the Bottom comes from a very dark space. Was it therapeutic writing about the dark times that you've had in the past?
I mean, I quite often write about darker times. Not so much now, but that's the whole reason I started writing songs. I went through depression in high school, and writing songs was a therapeutic thing for me to do, to get my feelings out, to express what I was going through. And this song is still it touches on that, but it's still we want to keep it lighthearted. So even though things are going great now, there have been some down times, and it's always easier if you've got someone that can empathize with you, that can be there for the journey. You can grab a drink and have a chat about what's going on, and you can get out of it together. And that was kind of the idea behind the song. Like, let's make the most of being down. Like, right, we're down, but let's make the most of it. Let's have a bit of fun. Let's grab a drink. We'll have a chat. We'll talk it out. There might be a few tears, but we'll come out the other side. So that's why the whole idea of meeting at the bottom.
The final song we've got to talk about, Hot Damn, It's Been a Minute, sounds like you probably started with a song title and then had to build up a whole song around that. Is that how it worked?
Pretty much. I was on the phone to my sound guy one day, and we hadn't spoken in a while. And I just randomly, I've never said it before in my life, but I was just said, "God damn, it's been a minute." And he said, "Yeah," and he started talking. He said, "Hold on, I need to write that down. I think this might be a song title." But yeah, it's just catching up with friends when it's been a while. I'm a very low maintenance friend. I'm not someone that needs constant attention and constant hanging out. I've got friends in America that I'll see every few years, and when we do get together, it's just like nothing's changed. Like we pick up exactly where we left off. So that was kind of the concept here, where it's been a minute. Let's catch up and pick up where we left off.
Okay, and that's the album Lucky Stars. You have described your music as a gateway drug to country music. So how is that thought continuing in the Lucky Stars album?
Look, I mean, it's just always been the case. I've got some different influences. I was in a pop punk band for years after high school where I played guitar. And I grew up listening to pop music with my mum, and And then I think working in a music store, we would just play whatever came in. Like we go, oh, that cover looks interesting. Let's pop it on. So there are all these different influences that I think have crept through in my music. And it's not your standard country album, but it's definitely more country than other genres, I believe. And but yeah, look, quite often people will come up to me and go, you know what? I'm not really into country music, but I really enjoyed that. And then next time I see them, they go, man, I've been listening to this person and that person. And someone actually said it just last night, came up to me and said that exact thing. They said, man, I heard you and I checked it out and I loved it. And now, I've gone and I've listened to Brad Cox and Travis Collins and, they're listening to more and more country music, which I think is fantastic.
Well, now that you've brought up your mum and a music taste, I want to know what your mum's music taste was. What was she slapping on the albums when you were a kid?
It was basically whatever was on the radio, on the commercial radio. But there were two specific cassettes that were in our car that were on high rotation. There was a Kate Ceberano album, but there was. And to this day, it's still one of my favorite albums is Jenny Morris's album Shiver. And every word on that album I could probably sing back to you. It's, still right up there. But then, as we got older, there was The Cause. I'm just trying to think what else she would have. But there's just always a lot of pop music. And, so that was mum's tastes.
I guarantee that both Kate and Jenny will be hearing about this.
I believe Jenny knows. I believe Jenny knows. Kate probably doesn't know, but they were the two albums that were on high rotation.
Well, it's been good to talk to you, Andrew. Some great stories in there. Lucky Stars is the album. Thanks for being here at Noise 11.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Thanks for the chat.